Good morning. I'd like to call to order the open meeting for Thursday, July 17th, 2025. I will now ask the Commissioning Secretary for information on today's agenda.
Each commissioner has independently reviewed the minutes of the open meeting of Thursday, June 26, 2025, and each has informed me there is no need to discuss the minutes.
I move we approve the minutes of the open meeting of Thursday, June 26, 2025.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Each commissioner has independently reviewed the agenda, and each has informed me there is no need to discuss the notices associated with agenda items 2 through 17. The draft final rule order and report to legislature and docket 1 AC 257 associated with agenda item 18, or the suggested minute associated with agenda item 19, approving the applicant's 2024 fuel reconciliation application and directing the applicant to refund the 2024 overcollected fuel balance plus interest at the applicant's authorized cost of short-term debt rate in October 2025 using the class level allocation method based on 2024 actual electricity usage to establish unique credit rates for each customer class.
I move we approve the notices of investigation associated with agenda items 2 through 9.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move we approve the notices of proceeding associated with agenda items 10 through 17.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
In docket 1 AC 257, I move we approve the draft final rule order.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
In docket 3270 FR 2024, I move we accept Madison Gas and Electric Company's 2024 fuel reconciliation consistent with the Secretary's description.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Our first few discussion items for the day are fuel reconciliation applications from NSPW, WEBCO, and WPS. Commissioner Nieto will be leading our discussions for these, and we're going to start with agenda item number 20, which is docket 4220 FR 2024, the NSPW fuel reconciliation application. Commissioner Nieto.
Thank you, Chair Strand. As Chairperson Strand said, we have 3 fuel reconciliation dockets to discuss here. These are similar in that they are all reconciling actual costs from the 2024 fuel plan year. And all 3 of these utilities, similar to MG&E, which we just approved, are in over-collection or credit positions. So what we're really looking at here today is approving staff's audit of those costs and approving a method to refund credits to customers. So in general, each of the 5 major investor-owned electric utilities have to file an annual proposed fuel cost plan for monitored fuel costs for the next calendar year. And the PSC 116 admin code rules provide for the method for annual reconciliation of those monitored fuel costs that were included in the plan year. And in general, when we've had over-collected balances requiring a refund or credit to go back to customers in the past, we haven't used a standard approach for the time period or for the method of refund. It's really been case-specific, and sometimes that'll depend on the amount of the refund, other circumstances, or even a utility's specific billing system capabilities. In very general terms, when we're dealing with credits, there are a couple of things I would note. First of all, I'd note, we already discussed this when we set the fuel costs for 2025. Now we're back into reconciling 2024. But if we overset fuel costs, which it's hard either way because these are volatile costs that have fuel reconciliation for a reason, because they're hard to forecast. But when we overset, we get into this situation in which the over-collection amount multiplied by 2% is retained by the utility, and then the remainder after that goes back to customers with interest. The interest on these balances doesn't come close to making up for the 2%. It's hard the other way around too. We'll have another docket to reconcile this year where there is a charge owed by customers that was under collected. those are difficult as well because customers have additional charges added to their bills. So we try to stay as close within that 2% band as possible. And when there was an overcharge and customers do get to receive a credit back, like what we're talking about today, in general, as a policy matter, we usually want refunds to get back to customers just as soon as possible. And that's a little different from surcharges or back bills, like depending on the amount that a customer owes in back billing. If it's a larger amount, it makes a lot of sense to spread that out over time to alleviate impacts. That same approach doesn't usually apply with credits, depending on any other contextual issues that might be going on with billing at the time. So that's all the background I'll do. We have 3 of these to go through here. Chair Strand mentioned the first one that we're talking about is the NSPW reconciliation. NSPW reported an overcollection of its fuel and purchase power costs by $13,205,419. And after it was adjusted for that 2% fuel cost band, that was reduced to an overcollection of $9,896,321. NSPW also has a remaining refund obligation from 2023 owing to customers. And that amount is $1,097,058, plus accrued interest at the short-term borrowing rate. And commission staff audited the applicant's 2024 monitored fuel costs, didn't find any errors, imprudently incurred costs, or misstatements of the costs, or in the applicant's calculation of the remaining 2023 refund obligation and interest which together with 2024 totals the $11,287,579. So we had several options in terms of returning refunds to customers on this one. I was at alternative 1, approve the 2024 fuel reconciliation application by NSPW, and then sub-alt B, refund the 2024 overcollection and the 2023 over recovery in September of 2025 with interest at short-term debt using the class level allocation method shown in Table 1. And with that, I will turn it over to Chair Strand.
Thank you, Commissioner Nieto, for teeing up this process for us and for leading a discussion of that first item. I'm in the exact same place that you are, so alternative 1, sub-alt B, which would be to refund it using the class level allocation in September. I think the pros to this are that the class level allocation has been the Commission's kind of more preferred allocation approach for the past 8 years. Also, this approach, I believe, more accurately returns money to the customers that contributed to the overcollection. So just like when we do rate setting and cost allocation in a rate proceeding and then allocate it by class, this return would allocate the credit by class as well. So I think it's consistent with our approach in the rate case proceedings as it relates to setting rates and allocating costs in general. The applicant is okay with this approach that's articulated in Alt 1 sub B, and I think returning the collections in September is as soon as possible, and so it gives customers that money back that they're owed right away. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Commissioner Hawkins?
Thanks. I'm in a similar place, not the same place. I also am supportive of the class level allocation method for the reasons that the chair just explained. And I was in sub-alt F over a multi-month period for a couple of reasons there. I agree with the motivation to get the dollars returned to customers as soon as possible. But where I was last year during these reconciliation cases was that it's over a longer period of time, you have the ability to be more accurate for your load forecast for how much is consumed. So September is a strange month. It could be a summer month, it could be a fall month. So the utility is trying to estimate what loads are in a single month. And if your usage is strange for that 1 month, you all of a sudden don't get your refund that you're due. So if you're on vacation for 10 days in one single month and your house has all the lights off, you're not getting your refund that you deserve. If you do it over a multi-month, it's more likely you will have your typical usage over a 4-month period. So I think the longer period of time gives you a higher degree of accuracy that you will have your typical usage over that period of time. We're encompassing multiple seasons over that 4-month period. And so that is why I support a longer period of time. It also eliminates potential confusion if you have a pretty big deviation in your typical bill with a large quantity being refunded. It might spark questions. It might lead to, an assumption that your bills are going down in future months drastically as well, and kind of set false expectations. That's a little more abstract, but it's something that I thought about as well. So that's why I was at F. Again, I support class level, but I do think there are some positives to a multi-month approach that are worth considering.
Thank you. I appreciate those considerations, and I think you make some good points. And I think one counterbalancing point to that I had considered was just this concept of like the farther you go out, the more customers you have dropping off the system who were owed a refund and didn't get to still be customers while it was sent out. So that's just another point on the side of get them out as quickly as possible and capture the folks who are still there in terms of credits and refunds versus spreading things out and extending. So that might offset or at least counterbalance a couple of those benefits. Chair Strand?
I agree with what you said. I think, to put a finer point on it, this money is owed to the customers, and I would like the customers to receive their credit as soon as possible. I also think, I appreciate Commissioner Hawkins' analysis, and it's helpful. But there could also then be a pretty significant variation between December bills and January bills under the scenario of spreading it out, and then once we're in winter heating season and the credit's gone and energy usage is up, I don't know that the smoothness would exist post credit spreading over those 3 months. So again, I think just getting it back to them in September before new rates are effective and when we have as many people who paid for this overage on the system is probably the best thing to do for the customers.
Thanks. And Commissioner Hawkins, do you want to add anything about that kind of counterbalance as well?
No, it makes sense. It's a good point. I'm fine joining the two of you at B. I just think this is something that I'd like to get more knowledge on myself about, the certainty of how we're predicting the usage and putting it all in a single month. It seems like we could maybe analyze internally what a best practice might look like. Some of the potential drawbacks that I raised, I'd like to follow up with staff in future years to make sure we have a handle on some of those downsides. But I'm fine joining you at B for now.
Thank you. Yeah, and I agree with you. I was, as you were detailing that, I was thinking back to the MG&E proposal, and there's an interesting proposal there and something that is a little bit more granular, I think, to some of the points you're making, and that's something I'd be interested in following up on as well, including the points you're making here too. So thank you. All right, so that was 4220, and what I'll do is move into 6630 and 6690, and then I think we can just go through the motions for all of these. So going to 6630, this is 2024 monitored fuels for WEPCO. WEPCO reported an overcollection of $86,211,880 for 2024. That was reduced down to $66,649,290 when adjusted for that 2% band. The audit that commission staff conducted of the monitored fuel costs did not identify any errors in prudently incurred costs or misstatements of the 2024 monitored fuel costs. So we would have, if the refund is made in September 2025, the total refund would be $68,988,492 $437, which includes interest at the short-term debt rate. The unique aspect of this docket and the next one we'll discuss is there was some discussion in the comments around the staff's interpretation and utilities interpretation, essentially, of our fuel rules, how monitored fuel costs are set, how they are audited, and then how reconciliations are to be calculated. I'll just say at a very high level that, to me, the statutes and admin code provisions on rates and on the fuel rules are clear. And staff's audit and reading of the plain language of those requirements and its application of those is correct. And I don't support the comments identifying that we need to somehow reopen the audit and redo our approach. So I'll leave it at that. I was at Alt 1 and again at Sub-Alt B, which would be the September 2025 class level, as we just did with NSPW's overcollection. Chair Strand?
Thank you. First, to your comments about the comments we received regarding reopening the audit. I agree with you, and I think your position on that carries even more weight given your previous position and your knowledge of this process and interpretation of those rules in the audit process. So I agree. I was not compelled by those arguments at all, and frankly feel that they missed the mark. So I'm comfortable with proceeding with the numbers that are presented here and not pursuing any of the things that were proposed in those comments. And with that being said, I also was at Alt 1 Sub B as you were on the previous one. So thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Hawkins?
Thanks. I agree with the reaction to the comments on the audit as well. I looked into that, given that it mentioned, hourly LMPs and things like that I'd like to nerd out on. So I agree that the interpretation is correct and there's no need to take any action as was suggested there. Again, I was at a multi-month. I was at H originally. I will join the two of you at B. I think my concern about the month-to-month fluctuation in bills is even larger here with WEPCO. Some of these changes in the bills will be really significant. So there's a lot of money riding on you having your typical usage in September in order to get what you're owed. But fully understand the concerns we talked about in the last one. So I'll join you at B.
Thank you. And for this particular docket, if should there be a need for us to affirmatively state, I appreciated the late filed reply comments, appreciate the intent of those. I did not find those necessary in my review and my determination about the comments we received about the reading of the fuel rules. So I don't have a need to bring those in unless one of my colleagues has a specific need here.
Nope, I agree with your position on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Same here.
Thank you. All right, and then that brings us to 6690, FR 2024. So this is for WPS. Applicant is reporting an overcollection by $65,365,830 for 2024. That was reduced down to $50,983,092 available for refund to customers after being adjusted for that 2% band. Again, the audit that staff conducted did not identify errors in prudently incurred costs or misstatements of the applicant's 2024 monitored fuel costs. If the refund is made in September 2025, the total refund would be $52,712,882 with interest included. In this docket, we had the same set of comments about the interpretation of our fuel rules. I have the same response, determination, and interpretation on those as we just discussed in the previous. Also don't see need to take notice of the late filed reply comments. And that leaves me at Alt 1, approving the applicant's reconciliation application, Sub-Alt B, refunding the overcollected balance in September 2025 using class level allocation. Chair Strand?
I'm in the same place. Thank you.
I'll join you at B without the spiel this time.
Thank you. All right, thanks to you both. In docket 4220 FR 2024, I move we accept Northern States Power Company's 2024 fuel reconciliation consistent with our discussion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye. In 6630 FR 2024, I move we accept Wisconsin Electric Power Company's 2024 fuel reconciliation consistent with our discussion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
In 6690 FR 2024, I move we accept Wisconsin Public Service Corporation's 2024 fuel reconciliation consistent with our discussion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, and thank you, Commissioner Nieto, again for leading our discussion of those. That brings us to agenda item 23, which is docket 6630 CG 140, the application of Wisconsin Electric Power Company gas operations, or WEGO, for a certificate of authority to construct a new LNG or liquefied natural gas facility and associated infrastructure in the city of Oak Creek. So the proposed facility that we're looking at here would be in close proximity to the Elm Road Generating Station, or ERGS, and the recently authorized Oak Creek combustion turbine project that this commission approved in docket 6630 CE 317 recently. Furthermore, the proposed project would be tied to the existing Lakeshore pipeline system and the proposed Rochester lateral pipeline, which the commission will consider at a later date in docket 6630 CG 139. So as background, in this docket, WEGO is seeking authorization to construct the proposed LNG project due to growing demands for firm natural gas. Specifically, WEGO maintains that its electric operations, WEPCO, has requested firm natural gas service for 3 electric generation customers and which are also facilities. The existing Elm Road Generating Station and the planned Oak Creek combustion turbine projects, and the Paris, project that we were previously approved, and then the Paris reciprocating internal combustion engine, or RICE project, that we approved in southeastern Wisconsin. WEGO stated in its application here that the requested natural gas demand represents an increase in firm peak day demand on the order of 477,000 decatherms per day by November of 2027. And as noted by the applicant, it cannot meet the requested firm natural gas needs of their electric generation customers / facilities through any one project. And so WEGO maintains that it will need a combination of resources. So the prior mentioned Rochester lateral pipeline project that we'll take up in the future, the Oak Creek LNG project that's the subject of the docket that's before us today, and expansion of capacity on the ANR pipeline. This Oak Creek LNG project is specifically needed to ensure that the applicant can continue to service customers reliably and efficiently during periods of peak demand. The proposed project will be capable of pre-treating, liquefying, storing, and vaporizing natural gas for peaking service. It is designed to provide 300,000 decatherms of peak day firm natural gas capacity for its existing and proposed natural gas-fueled electric generation facilities, including the Oak Creek combustion turbine facility and the Paris Rice facilities. A little bit about process here. So the commission did issue a notice of proceeding for this docket on September 26, 2024, and our administrative law judge granted requests for intervention to CUB, Clean Wisconsin, Sierra Club, Walnut Way Conservation Corp., and the Wisconsin Industrial Energy Group. And so I would like to thank our interveners in this proceeding and for their participation and the contributions. Our docket here also did receive significant public participation as evidenced by the many comments submitted at our public hearings and the 121 public comments filed through our public comment website. We appreciate the public involvement in this proceeding because it does help us build out the record of evidence to consider and provides insight and perspective that might not otherwise have been included in the record. In terms of reasoning or justification, I think it's important at a foundational level for the commission to bear in mind that utilities do have a duty to serve their customers' energy needs, and therefore the utilities then need to have access to sufficient resources in order to fulfill that duty. So while it's reasonable to question whether demand additions, as described by the applicant, will materialize, I did find that the record included sufficient evidence to support the demand expectations of WEGO's customers, as well as the fact that this is a normal, reasonable, and expected practice to develop plans to meet those needs. Simply put, I found the record in this proceeding illustrates that the natural gas supply needs of WEGO's customers is anticipated to increase significantly in the near term, and also shows how the unique characteristics of this proposed project meet those needs and the applicant's obligations. In addition to need, the record in support of the project does include economic analysis demonstrating that the proposed project is more cost-effective than project alternatives. As noted in applicant witness testimony, under the base case assumptions of analyzed project alternatives, the applicant's analysis projects that this LNG project saves, on a net present value basis, $346 million compared to the first analyzed project alternative, and $645 million compared to the second analyzed project alternative. Further, under the worst-case assumption variations of these two alternatives, WEGO's economic analysis estimates a net present value savings of $173 million and $444 million respectively. So in consideration of the entirety of the evidence in the record and the application of our relevant statutory framework, I do support the issuance of a CA for the requested LNG facility with conditions that we will discuss as we walk through the decision matrix. Before I turn it over to my colleagues for their opening comments, I do want to very briefly address the topics of cost allocation and cost overruns, because those reoccur frequently throughout the record and also in our DM. So regarding cost allocation, it is incumbent on the commission to not prejudge decisions that may come before us at a future date. While I understand why the record includes discussion of cost allocation, our decision here is solely on the issuance of the CA, and this docket is not the venue to determine cost allocation. Cost allocation will absolutely be an issue in a future rate case proceeding when costs will be considered for inclusion into the revenue requirement, and in turn, that revenue requirement will be allocated to customers. With that being said, analysis in this record indicates that existing WEGO natural gas customers make up approximately 6% of the applicant's total expected demand growth, whereas the electric generation customers and facilities requesting additional firm capacity make up 94% of the total expected demand growth. From a cost causation perspective, that is important to consider, and I think it's appropriate for the commission through our decision today to establish an understanding and expectation that cost allocation for this facility will be discussed in a future rate case proceeding, and the applicant will need to provide relevant and substantive information about this at that time. I will share some more thoughts on this topic when we get to this issue and discuss it. It's issue 5E in the decision matrix. Now, on the topic of cost overruns, I will address this up front in the hopes that we don't take too much time restating positions from recent decisions throughout our discussion of proposed conditions in this docket. This docket was developed on a relatively parallel timing track with the Oak Creek combustion turbine docket, and many of the same cost overrun suggestions we saw in the OCCT project appear as decision points in this DM as well. That applies to cost overrun suggestions from the applicant and from interveners. As I noted in our OCCT discussion, taking up suggested cost overrun conditions as proposed, unfortunately, will not appropriately, sufficiently, nor holistically address this issue. In light of the Commission's numerous discussions about this challenging topic, as part of the OCCT decision, the Commission ordered a generic investigation of cost overruns to gather information with the goal of developing a framework and methodology to be utilized on a consistent basis. And we still need to avoid addressing cost overruns in a short-sighted piecemeal fashion here. Therefore, in light of the similarities of the cost overrun decision points between this docket and the OCCT docket, and because we ordered the cost overrun investigation, my positions in this docket will be the same or similar as they were in the OCCT project, and I'm not supportive of the cost overrun conditions suggested in this proceeding. Okay, so I will now turn it over to my colleagues for any opening comments that they may have, and then we will walk through the issues presented to us in our decision matrix. Commissioner Nieto.
Thank you, Chair Strand. I think your opening remarks did a good job of describing the issue in this case and framing it. I won't repeat any of that framing here. That includes your comments to the NPV savings, economic analysis, the point of the generic docket that we authorized in the OCCT docket, and then cost allocation as well. I do appreciate your comment on the expectation of around what we would be looking for in a substantive, thorough cost allocation discussion in the future in an appropriate docket. I thought that the intervener witness and staff comments on why this cost allocation discussion is particularly unique and standing out here were helpful, and they were helpful to tee up in this docket so that we could proceed with that discussion and have that as a flag planted for the correct docket in the future. Other than that, I will just add to what you said with, in general, I'm in the same spot as it sounds like you are. We'll discuss need and EPL under specific issues here, but clearly if a project meets the statutory criteria and the public interest is served, we have a statutory obligation to approve it. And this project, subject to certain conditions that we'll get into later, does meet those criteria. I did, in my review of the record, identify one thing that I thought warranted an additional condition that I'd like to raise with you both and hear your thoughts on. And I think that's really just around the point estimate for firm natural gas requirements in 27, 28. And the timing of those requirements coming in. So this application and that point estimate was provided in April of 2024, I believe. And since then, of course, we've approved Oak Creek CT, we've approved Paris Rice, ERGs. We have not seen or approved, but that makes up a significant portion of this, the firm requirements here. And so I think, one of the witnesses pointed out, number one, in terms of timing, the timing of the CT units coming online. We know there's a timing difference in terms of when Paris is coming online after our approval. And then we don't know what new timing differences or updates there are with ERGs. And so that said, we could be in a position where in those first years of this project being in service, there could be excess capacity or there could be a discrepancy between the point estimate and the capacity of the project. So under issue 1, I do have some discussion of that. That said, I was overall at an approval of the project, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nieto. Commissioner Hawkins?
Thanks. Echo the thanks of the participating interveners and the public comments, also very helpful. And on the work of staff, I just want to comment that a lot of the data requests that were sent around in this docket were questions that I had myself, so it was fun to read through those and feel like my mind was being read a little bit. So some broad concerns kind of echoing what Commissioner Nieto was just saying that I want to highlight right off the bat is that, well, one thing throughout the record, there seemed to be a misrepresentation of what our standard is for CA approval. That was kind of irking me. It's not just to review the cost effectiveness of alternatives that the applicant puts forward. We have to review the need first, as you both have discussed, and then assess the value and compare those two things to make sure it complies with the statute. And so, and the valuation of the benefits of a project is a key piece of our CA approval. And as is the need, and that's why there was so much back and forth on the record about that because of some of the uncertainties on the need that Commissioner Nieto was just talking to. So, so this is very similar to the conversations we've seen in the related dockets that have been mentioned, and goes to the concern of the timing of this application and some of these things sort of happening over years. So that's understandable why we saw those uncertainties being discussed here again. I am going to have conditions that I'd like to see as a part of approval of this application. One, and I'll get into this more later, follows on to what Commissioner Nieto was just saying, that a huge portion of this need is the fact that the Elm Road generating station is stated by the applicant to be converted to natural gas. This commission has no evidence or application that that is actually going to happen. It's just been stated and unchallenged. And so I have concerns with that not being vetted further. So I want to make sure that because the value of this project is contingent on that actually being a customer, and that will impact cost allocation certainly as well, that's a critical piece of it. So the other thing I want to tee up an expectation for the cost allocation conversation. I thought Chair Strand put it very well, and I have a couple specifics of things I'd like to see in that conversation, and I'll detail them as we discuss it. But one thing I just want to put out there right now is that there's a clear shift in the customer makeup of WeGo's customers, where the peak day customers and the firm load historically was residential customers, C&I. Now, over the next coming years, that's going to be completely turned on its head, where the biggest customers are electric generators. And so there's been a major paradigm shift, and so reviewing the rate structures and everything with that in mind, I think is critical, because so much has changed with the customer makeup of the applicant. So, and that goes to the fact that, you know, the energy transition and the load growth that we're seeing is like nothing we've seen before. So it's very reasonable for us to look at these in a new way. So I want to spell out a couple things that I'd like to see in that cost allocation conversation. A part of that will also be an analysis of existing customers and the benefits that they may or may not receive. And there was a lot of conversation about hedging in the record, and that being a possible benefit of and a value of this project. There wasn't really an analysis of to what extent current customers are already fully hedged from spot market prices. So in that cost allocation conversation, I will be detailing the fact that there was no analysis made yet as far as what possible benefits even exist for existing customers. So I'll leave it at that. And yeah, looking forward to discussing.
Thank you. We will move on then to our first issue. Issue 1 asks if the proposed facility, if constructed, will substantially impair, the efficiency of the applicant's service, provide facilities unreasonably in excess of probable future requirements, or add to the cost of service without proportionally increasing the value of service. So this is not a new statutory condition for us. When the commission reviews these types of construction applications, we do need to apply this statute, which is section 196.49 sub 3. And that states that we may refuse, not shall, refuse to certify this project as necessary for the public convenience if any of the three provisions which are located in 196.493 sub 3 sub B apply. And again, those are: the project substantially impairs the efficiency of service of the public utility, the project provides facilities unreasonably in excess of probable future requirements, and that when placed in operation, the project adds to the cost of service without proportionally increasing the value or available quantity of service unless the public utility waives consideration by the commission in the fixation of rates. So obviously, in their opening comments, both of my colleagues have pointed to some issues related to these provisions, and I believe some tightening of conditions as it relates to these provisions. So I will let, if this is where they intend to propose some of those things, I will let them include those now as part of our discussion of issue 1. But I will start with saying that I am at alternative 1. But I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about your conditions. Thank you. We'll go to Commissioner Nachos first. If this is where you wanted to do them, we can come back to yours if they're later. That's fine, we can do that. So we'll do yours now, and then you can tell me when you want yours. Okay, perfect, thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Chair Strand, and this again is getting to the opening discussion here, and I'm interested to hear what you both think. But again, the commission, we just recently approved the Oak Creek CT and Paris Rice plants in previous dockets. We found substantial evidence of need for those facilities, and those facilities, together with the proposed ERG's conversion, need firm natural gas capacity. The power plants were found by us to be needed and to be the most cost-effective and reliable option to meet load growth responsibly as part of the utility's transition to net zero. And together with a diverse portfolio that included other significant levels of renewable and battery storage resources, and looking forward, growing demand response capacity. We also required the addition of significant demand response capacity to be proposed in the next rate case by WEPCO to become an increasing low capital expenditure portion of the resource mix that these plants are intended to support. And the evidence in this record, to me, does show that without the LNG facility at all, WEGO cannot reliably serve its firm natural gas customers, including the 2 new generation facilities that we've approved here. And I think it is also of note that interstate natural gas pipeline capacity into Wisconsin is fully subscribed. To some of, Chair Strand, what you mentioned in your open remarks, per the public information in this docket, Wisconsin Electric is stating a need of 477,000 decatherms per day of firm natural gas capacity for the power plants. 300,000 decatherms per day of which can be provided by this LNG facility as part of the overall gas supply plan pool of resources. ERGS constitutes 215,000 decatherms per day of that request. So overall, in terms of getting to those statutory criteria that we're looking at under this issue, I did find that this project does not impair efficiency and that it is an efficient approach. However, when we're looking at the criteria for probable future requirements, the second criteria, we do have to take into consideration that should the demand from the electric generation side not materialize, as we discussed in the previous dockets, customers should be protected from construction of facilities in excess of future requirements. And I will just note too, I think these are important things to keep in mind for future cost allocation discussions too. There were customer protections included as part of a confidential filing in the Oak Creek and Paris dockets, and those do extend or apply in this record and docket as well. And then we placed order conditions on the construction of the power plants to protect customers in the event that forecasted load growth changes. So now that kind of shifting to the ERGS discussion here as one of the 3 plants, it is driving a significant part of the need for the project. It is not yet approved by the commission or presented to the commission as an application. This facility would be converted from a coal plant to a principally natural gas fueled resource. And then we don't have anything on the record indicating the timing of an application, a potential in-service date. We really have not a lot of updated information in the record related to this facility since the April 2024 application information was placed. And then additionally, related to timing, I already mentioned, there are some timing updates related to the OCCT units and the Paris kind of full deliverability dates as well that have been mentioned in this record. And so I think in general, we're essentially being asked to look at this holistically. So as an overall plan as part of Wisconsin Electric and Wisconsin Electric Gas Operations GRP plan, we don't have IRP in the state of Wisconsin. We haven't pre-looked at ERGS as part of an IRP. So we're kind of being asked to take a holistic look at something that's being presented to us piecemeal here. And we have to figure out a way to walk the line in terms of allowing for an efficient project to move forward that covers anticipated needs and not be divided up piecemeal, and a way to ensure customer protections and that we're not authorizing something that is in excess of reasonable needs. So the condition I would propose would be that in the event the applicant's anticipated or actual firm deliverability requirements for 2027 to 2028 significantly decrease from its point estimate of 1,058,474 decatherms per day, the applicant shall, within 30 days, both notify the commission of the decrease and detail the changes in the project scope, meaning the scope of this project, or the measures it will request in its gas supply plan to prudently avoid or mitigate any economic impacts of excess capacity to its customers. And this was the best way I could find to appropriately walk that line and get to alternative one on this issue. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Nieto. I think, one, what you have proposed is reasonable. I think it's consistent to, like you said, similar considerations that we gave to the previous Oak Creek project. And I like your inclusion of the gas supply plan, because that's another kind of check that we have. And there's a number of factors that are analyzed there that relate to some of these things, and I think are appropriate to highlight. And again, in terms of notification, because so many of the things that we're going to talk about today in the conditions are regarding notification. We can't do anything about any of these things unless we know very quickly when they happen, that they're happening. And so again, I think it's important for us to have all of this information, given, like you said, the lack of IRPs and the piecemeal approach that's being given. I see it, as I've said before, as kind of a trust but verify situation. So I think that the condition is reasonable, and I can definitely support it, especially if it helps get you to where you need to be on the three provisions of 196.43 sub 3 sub B. So yes, thank you for A, the discussion, B, the development of it, and I can support it. So we'll hear from Commissioner Hawkins on that one next. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Nieto, and thanks for explaining the challenges of the decision that we have to make. I get to sympathize with how hard it is to make the decision for you instead of myself, so that's helpful. I came to a really similar determination in and didn't have as artful of a reporting requirement or notification. So your language sounds better than what I have scrapped together later. So I'll likely be referring to that. But I did want to say, in response to a couple of things that you raised in the related dockets, you mentioned the two things. There was, we found the need for the construction cases for the gas. The need for those is not the same here. There was analysis in those cases of looking at what if just 450 megawatts of load arise. The need still existed and was proven to us in that case for a very smaller subset of the load developing, and that's what got me to approval in those cases. So this need is not just a one-for-one, we approved it there, it's the same need here. We have, as you mentioned, no insight into ERGs converting, which is a huge component of the need. We then also have this firm requirement for all of the use of the facilities, which wouldn't be necessary if just a subset of the electric load materializes. So this need analysis is related, but not the same. And so I just wanted to stress that. And that goes to some of the challenges I had at arriving at alternative one here as well, and then the need for further conditions to protect consumers like you were talking about. I do want to say that in reviewing the protections that we had in place for Oak Creek and Paris, I don't think those apply here. I think we've already fully used up the value of, there's no more skin in the game. This is an additional investment, and that's why it requires further scrutiny. We don't have that level of protection that we saw in the first set of decisions in these related dockets. So that's just something, my interpretation of those agreements that we've seen. So it's all riding on what we put in place here condition-wise. As far as any consumer protections, I think are going to have to be created here today and don't exist inherently in what is already out there. So let's see here. Yeah, I'll propose some conditions later. I think what you did, I fully support, so it's probably going to substitute for something I was going to offer later, but as I said, I think your condition did a better job of that. So I do support what you put forward, and I'll leave the rest of my thoughts for later.
So just to be sure, does legal have what they need in terms of Commissioner Nietzsche's proposed condition, or would you like her to restate it?
I think I got it. So unless anyone else wants it read back or wants to hear it again. No, okay.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so are you withholding your position on this until we get to your other ones, or where are you? Are you good on moving to 2? Do you approve, are you supportive of 1 with Commissioner Nietzsche's condition?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. All right, issue number 2 has to do with the energy priority law and asks if there are any energy priority law options that are cost-effective, technically feasible, and environmentally sound alternatives to building the proposed project. So I believe my opinion here is that the record did not provide compelling evidence that any of the EPL options would be cost-effective, technically feasible, environmentally sound alternatives to this project. Again, there's this obligation to serve, and it's of paramount importance that utilities do that in a reliable and efficient manner, especially during periods of peak demand. This project is proposed, the proposed project is intended to meet that growing peak natural gas demand from electric generation facilities in southeastern Wisconsin, and I do think that the record demonstrates that the proposed project is the most effective way to meet that demand. And again, for this type of project, these EPL alternatives just don't do the same. So for this one, I was at alternative 1. Commissioner Nieto?
Thanks, Chair Strand. I was at a similar place on this one and at alternative 1.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Commissioner Hawkins?
Alt 1 as well for me.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to issue 3, which is uncontested. We don't need to discuss it, which begins our discussion about conditions. So issue 4A asks what standard conditions should be attached to construction of the proposed project. I was at alternative 1 on this one. So consistent with our prior decisions in construction dockets, I generally support the inclusion of standard order conditions because they provide reasonable guardrails and do ensure transparent reporting expectations that are in place as the project proceeds kind of past where we are right now and through construction and in service. So I was very fine with including all of them, and therefore, again, I'm at alternative 1.
And I'm at alt 1 as well, all standard conditions.
Thank you.
This is where I was going to try to attach something similar to what Commissioner Nieto just put forward as a subcomponent to D, which is the hard cap related to costs, so I'm not going to do that. But I did notice that there wasn't a standard order condition that we typically see related to all commitments made by the applicant in this application, and kind of clearly spelling out that they are held to everything that they've committed to in the record. And so I was suggesting an additional standard condition consistent with what we see in electric applications related to commitments made by the applicant. So I have that language if you want me to read it, but otherwise it is our standard language on those commitments. And I just don't know if it was an oversight or if it's just different between electric and gas, but I wanted to raise that here for inclusion, if that would be useful.
Okay, so we asked several times if there are any conditions, standard conditions that we're missing, and we were told no, but that doesn't mean it's not the case. So can you read it out loud so we're all aware of the exact language that you're talking about and whether it's applicable here?
I sure can. The language is all commitments made by the applicant in this application, subsequent filings, and the provisions of the final decision shall apply to the applicant, any agents, contractors, successors, assigns, corporate affiliates, and any future owners or operators of the project. And it's like the catch-all for commitments, like when they say they'll come back and do, informational things. It's just sort of the catch-all that we've seen in the electric applications.
Go ahead.
I thank you for identifying that, and I agree with the importance of a general condition on capturing all the commitments made in the docket. That's important. Thanks.
Okay, so does legal have what they need if we agree to include this? Okay, we can include that in the standard conditions. And again, like you said, Commissioner Hawkins, even though it's technically could fall under sub D, we'll talk about your other conditions because they would be project specific to this project as we kind of work through that part of the conversation, if that's okay? Okay. So we are at, I believe, Alt 1 slightly modified on this issue because we were in we want all of the standard conditions plus the addition of Commissioner Hawkins' condition. So, yes, we're good on that?
That's my understanding. Commissioner Hawkins that's where you're at as well?
Yeah.
All the standard ones too? Okay, thanks.
Okay. Moving on to 4B. 4B asks if the cost overrun reporting condition requested by the applicant is reasonable to impose as a condition of approval. I did discuss this in my opening comments, and my position on this one is consistent with my decisions on this issue in the Oak Creek and Paris Rice dockets. So the applicant here is proposing that the commission kind of reimpose their 10% cost overrun cap. So I'll just say that while this might be the first LNG project to have the hard cap imposed on it, to me, the type of project to be constructed does not dictate whether or not the hard cap should be imposed. Instead, the hard cap has been the commission position on construction project cost overruns since 2023, when we moved away from the 10% threshold that's actually being proposed by the applicant in this sub-issue. It just so happens that this is the applicant's first LNG facility approval request since the hard cap became our kind of consistent commission position on cost overruns. And I would just say that given the issues that we are continuing to experience with cost overruns and the fact that we ordered an investigation into them, I'm not comfortable reverting to that 10% threshold here. And then again, as we probably talk about every time the hard cap is discussed, I think it's important to note here that the hard cap does not preclude cost overruns, though we obviously would strongly prefer that they don't occur. And it's not a prejudgment on recoverability of cost overruns. The hard cap that we're discussing, that is in the standard conditions that we're talking about right now, is simply a notification requirement, similar to what we talked about earlier, that the commission receives notification and information about potential cost overruns within 30 days of their discovery or identification. So instead of once they exceed it by 10%, then they have to notify us. We're saying if it's going to exceed the project cost estimate, we need to know within 30 days, and then we need information about those things. To me, that's not too much to ask. So I am strongly at alternative 3 for this one, which would be that the condition proposed by the applicant is not necessary for approval of this project.
Same for me. I'm at Alt 3 on this one for the same reasons.
Thank you.
I'm at Alt 3 for the same reasons, and I'll pile on that the cost estimates already have some contingency and current market dynamics built into them. And so the need for the 10% for additional contingency is something I can't support. So that's why I'm at Alt 3.
Okay, thank you. We are moving on to 4C now, which asks if the cost cap recovery condition requested by CUB is reasonable to impose as a condition of approval. So this is different than what we just talked about. This is about capping recoverability. So here I am also at alternative 3, similar to what I said at the beginning of our discussion. And just in general, that this condition isn't necessary for the project because while the language that's to what's being recommended here has been included as an order condition in buy-sell acquisition dockets, the item that's before us today is a utility construction docket. And there are differences between a buy-sell docket and a utility construction project, many differences actually. Here, I did not see enough justification in the record in support for this condition. And because of the difference in circumstances between the two docket types, I'm at alternative 3. I know that this condition will be more fully addressed in our cost overrun investigation, and we know for a fact that recoverability of this project and its cost overruns, if they occur, will be taken up in a future rate case proceeding. So I did not think that this condition was necessary for this project. Commissioner Nato.
I was in the same spot, Alt 3, and similar to our discussions in the Oak Creek, CT, and Paris dockets. appreciated these cost containment conditions being raised, and I think they'll contribute to the generic docket, as we said before as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Hawkins?
All three for me as well.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to 4D. 4D asks if the competitive bids and workforce reporting conditions suggested by our staff are reasonable to impose as a condition of approval. Here I am at alternative 2, which I will explain. So consistent with my prior decisions on many previously approved construction dockets, I'm very supportive of all of the proposed workforce reporting requirements indicated in Romanets H, I, and J and identified in this issue. Regarding the competitive bidding language in Romanet G, so this is a newer requirement for the commission, and it is frankly hard for us to know what to ask for given the limited transparency into utility construction. So consistent with my position in the Oak Creek decision and the Paris Rice decision, I support including this language, but I would like it to be slightly modified, which is what we did in those previous dockets, by adding the as applicable language to it. So the competitive bid reporting requirement listed here in condition G would just be slightly modified to read, as applicable, a summary of competitive bids received within the quarter, if any, for work to be performed and equipment to be procured as part of this project. Again, I think it just gives a little bit of flexibility, given that we don't really know everything that's going on, which is, again, one of the points of the cost overrun investigation. So with that addition, I am at alternative 2, that the proposed conditions G as modified through J become part of the standard quarterly reporting condition in this project. Commissioner Nieto.
Same spot, Alt 2 with the same wording modification. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hawkins?
I agree. L2.
Okay, thank you. Issue 5 begins our project-specific condition discussion. 5A asks if the following wetland and waterway conditions are reasonable to impose. So I am at alternative 1 on this one. In previous dockets, I have objected to the inclusion of these project-specific conditions due to my concerns that, frankly, it's disingenuous to call them project-specific when they are in fact cut and pasted from project to project and do not reflect any unique and distinct aspects of the project site, and also, or therefore, are unnecessary and somewhat duplicative, which concerns me in that they could impact schedule delays and projects through schedule delays and higher costs. For this project, I will support them, given that, one, this issue is relatively uncontested in this proceeding, and because I've been told that we are very close to seeing these better fleshed out project-specific conditions in forthcoming dockets. A lot of this is just a timing issue. I think, again, we've been pretty clear on the expectation, and now it's just a matter of those projects catching up and when they get before us. So again, I'm at alternative 1 on this one and waiting with bated breath for our new project-specific conditions. Commissioner Nieto.
Alt 1 for me as well.
Thank you.
Alt 1, no comment on the how I'm waiting.
Issue 5B asks if siting compliance and safety order conditions proposed by commission staff are reasonable to impose. Here I was at alternative 1. I think these conditions are necessary to ensure that the utility is compliant with federal code. And I want to say specifically throughout the docket, but also on the next few conditions, that I really do appreciate our natural gas pipeline safety staff. They're rock stars. They had very diligent participation review to ensure that these types of conditions are included here, and just to keep the whole system of what they oversee safe for all of us. So again, thanks to them, and alternative 1.
Alt 1. Thank you.
Same here.
Thank you. 5C asks if the specialized training order condition proposed by staff is reasonable to impose. Here I was at alternative 1 again, I do think that approving this condition is kind of a belt and suspenders approach. It appears from the record that the applicant was going to provide the training anyway, but in consideration of the safety concerns related to LNG facilities and that specialized training is needed, because if a fire were to occur, it would require a non-standard approach to sequester. Therefore, I do think it's reasonable to include this condition to direct the applicant to provide the spill control and fire suppression training suggested by our staff. Again, and I think it just kind of memorializes that to ensure that that's what happens. Commissioner Nieto?
Same Alt 1 here with that intent to memorialize.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Alt 1 for me as well.
Thank you. Okay, 5D asks if our staff's proposed Project-specific conditions related to final design and operation are reasonable. Here again, I'm also at alt 1, that these are necessary for approval. I think that this really helps ensure that the project's final design complies with federal code, and it is consistent with our prior decisions when the commission approved the Bluff Creek and Ixonia LNG facilities with these conditions, and so I would definitely include them here.
Alt 1?
Same for me, alt 1.
Thank you. Okay, 5E does talk about the cost allocation methodology order condition that we've already kind of had a robust discussion about, but that can continue with this one. Here, I'm at alt 3, just a slight modification to what's being proposed, but again, I know that there's probably some other discussion that's going to occur, and if it needs to occur on this one, that I'm okay with that. So I'm just gonna say, in terms of alt 3, this is a large project, and as I mentioned in my opening comments, and as you've heard from my fellow commissioners, the record includes a lot of cost allocation discussion, and this is an important issue as it relates to this project. So the project is purported and anticipated to benefit all of the applicant's customers. But the primary driver of the need for the proposed project is due to electric generation customers requesting additional firm capacity, and that split that I mentioned earlier is significant, 6% versus 94%. So while cost allocation is not before us in this docket, it will absolutely be a topic of significant interest in a future rate case proceeding when the project costs are reviewed and allocated. I do think directing the applicant to provide information detailing how it developed its allocation methodology to ensure that the costs are allocated appropriately seems very reasonable. I appreciate the forethought of our gas pipeline staff in recommending this condition so that, similar to what Commissioner Nieto said, we can put down a marker to ensure that this issue receives the attention it requires. Usually there's a lot of focus and discussion and development on the electric operations side of our rate case proceedings. This is not on that side, but that does not mean that this should be undeveloped or not given significant and serious consideration and development. I do think that, given the timing of all of this, that it's not certain that these project costs will be considered in the applicant's next rate case proceeding, as this proposed condition reads. So the reason I'm at alternative 3 is that I would just slightly modify the proposed condition to say the next rate case proceeding language to future rate case proceeding, next rate case language to change it to future rate case proceeding. So the modified directive would read, the applicant shall provide in a future rate case proceeding information detailing how it developed its cost allocation methodology for this project. It's more general and gives us more flexibility, given that, so we're not tied to just the next one, and given that it might not be ready then, or it might span multiple. I mean, we just don't know kind of timing wise where we are going to most thoroughly look at the cost allocation issue related to this project. So that's my slightly modified alt 3. But again, I know that we have other thoughts and potentially other things to consider adding here. So I will turn it over to Commissioner Nieto first and then Commissioner Hawkins. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a question on your modification, which seems reasonable. Is the intent with the future rate case proceeding to tie it to the next rate case proceeding in which any of these costs enter into rate base? Kind of saying like we don't, maybe in the next upcoming rate case, we might not have costs coming into rate base for this project?
Yep, that's correct. So any rate case proceeding where costs from this are incoming is when we need to have that flexibility to ask for this information and continue to develop that aspect of the record. But yes, what you said is correct. Yep. It might be the next one. It might be the next one and the following one. It might just be not this one, not next one, but the following one. So just that timing flexibility, if that makes sense.
We're going to consider it with the dollars coming in, and it could be in any combination of those. Thank you for.
Exactly.
Thank you for that. Yep, I can join you on that wording. I also appreciated staff planting this flag and raising this condition as well, and interested in further discussion on cost allocation too. Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, I agree with the clarification that Commissioner Nieto made. So as long as the language is very clear that the future rate case proceeding isn't so open-ended that it's not tied to when these costs are being discussed. So I think it might be another slight modification on what Chair Strand put forward. just to make sure that that piece is captured, because I think a one-for-one substitution of that language might leave it too open-ended. So that's first thing. I support the direction, though, and it makes total sense. The other thing that I would like to see modified on this condition, and also appreciate staff putting it forward, is that I'd like to spell out, two things that we see in that rate case proceeding, and have it be a condition of including this, but I don't want to limit it to these two things either. I just want to make sure that these are two must-haves for me on.
Including but not limited to.
Exactly.
Okay.
All those legal eagles out there, yes. As part of that rate case proceeding, I want to see an assessment of the current levels of hedging that existing gas customers receive. As Chair Strand mentioned, the disproportionate nature of the new load is one factor that, colors how existing customers may benefit from this project. The other is some of the benefits that were talked about in the record, and hedging was a key component of that. And so I want to make sure in that rate case holistic review, we have a very detailed analysis of to what extent existing customers can even hedge more as part of that. So that is the first item. The second item is what I mentioned earlier, is an assessment of how the applicant's customer mix for firm gas is expected to evolve over the period of this decade, 2020 to 2030. And as part of this rate case proceeding, a deep dive needs to be done on the customer types that are driving the firm gas and the peak day requirements, and how that is expected to shift over the next 5 years that this project would be built and put into service. So, just some justification for that. Typical load growth happens much more slowly. Now that we're so closely connected to electric investments that are lumpy and huge, these issues of timing for costs to be shifted if things don't come online in the electric case are a whole new issue, I think. And so by suggesting this part for that rate case proceeding, I think it'll start to help us suss out some of those potential complications for just how the change in the customer makeup introduces novel cost allocation issues. So those are my two, but not limited to, as stated earlier.
Okay, so just super quickly, I think the future rate case proceeding language is general enough to cover what we needed to cover. It's also consistent with what we say in the standard conditions about recoverability and when those things will be taken up. So I think my change was just so we're not limited to the 2026 proceeding. And I think the future rate case proceeding kind of built in that implied flexibility, including what Commissioner Nieto pointed out about could be to next, could be subsequent to next, it could be both, et cetera. So that's why I proposed that modification. So I think we're now still at Alt 3, given the alternatives, but it's Alt 3. So this, with that modification, plus the two conditions that you are seeking as they relate specifically to the type of information that needs to be included in the cost allocation information provided during the next rate case proceeding or proceeding, during the future rate case proceeding or proceedings. And it's including but not limited to that information. Do you need him to restate that information specifically for the purpose of capturing the condition?
Why don't I recap and then everyone can just say whether they're good? So I think where we're at is the condition would read, the applicant shall provide in a future rate case proceeding information detailing how it developed its cost allocation methodology for this project, including but not limited to assessment of current levels of hedging that gas customers receive, and assessment of how the applicant's customer mix for firm gas is expected to evolve over this decade.
Sounds good. Sounds good to me.
That sounds good to me too, and I support all of those changes.
Yep, I think it's helpful direction. I can join, totally. So are you good with the, yes, where we are
Yep,
with the
I've got it.
modifications? Okay, perfect. Since the alternatives don't perfectly align. Okay. All right, so that is our decision on 5E, which means we are moving on to 5F, which asks if the change order request condition proposed by Cub is reasonable to impose. So here I was at alt 3. As I mentioned earlier, and consistent with my position in Oak Creek, this condition is not necessary for approval of this project. And the topic of change orders will absolutely be included in the scope of our cost overrun investigation because it is important. And we also don't have transparency into those either. So alt 3 on this one.
Alt 3 for me as well.
Thank you.
Same for me.
Thank you. Okay, issue 5 asks if the in-service date delay notification condition proposed by Cub is reasonable to impose. So this issue did also arise in our Oak Creek project, and there, we as a commission determined that the standard order condition specifically requiring the submission of quarterly reports with summaries of the status of construction, the anticipated in-service date, and the overall percent of physical completion did sufficiently address this, and therefore that this condition was not necessary for that project approval. In this docket, that standard order condition reporting requirement was included in the conditions that we approved in issue 4D, specifically Romanet C. Therefore, I feel that the in-service date delay notification condition that's proposed in this issue is not necessary, and so I am at alt 3 on this one.
I was at alt 3 here as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm just on the wrong one. I'm also at alt 3.
Sorry, 5G,
Yeah,
like the network.
got it. I scrolled too far ahead, sorry.
No, you're good. Okay, so alt 3, we're good. Okay. Moving on to 5H, which asks if the commission should identify cost overrun or schedule delay thresholds beyond which the commission would reopen. So again, as I noted, the cost overrun investigation is the appropriate place to consider these kinds of proposals. And at this point, I think it's not a good idea for us to adopt piecemeal approaches, including on reopeners. So here, I am at alternative 2, but these are the kinds of, I think, maybe tools or framework that should continue to be fleshed out and discussed in the cost overrun investigation.
Alt 2 as well.
Thank you.
Alt 2 for me.
Thank you. In issue 5I, we're asked if the following conditions proposed by a Cub witness are reasonable to impose. Here I was at alternative 3, that these conditions are not necessary. They are more appropriately considered in a future rate case or tariff proceeding, and I think addressing them at this time and in this docket would be premature. Again, I'm not saying that they're not without merit. It's a timing thing for me and a appropriateness of this docket thing for me. So therefore, I don't think they're necessary here, and I'm at alt 3.
I was at alt 3 here as well, and hopeful that the condition on notification about the requirements covers a little bit of the essence of item 1 there as well. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you.
For this one, I was at alt 2. I think that the proposed conditions 2 and 3 are already covered in our modifications that we just made on the cost allocation in 5E. I would suggest a modification for condition 1 that was put forward, and basically really shorten it. And I think it's pretty vague right now, certain milestones or things that are talked about. I have one milestone in mind, which is that cost recovery not be permitted until the ERG's conversion application is filed at the commission. So given the potential issues with costs being left if that does not occur, the fact that we haven't seen anything, and the fact that it drives such a large part of the need, I think it's a pretty simple requirement that the commission have an application for what is driving that need before costs are allowed to be recovered. It doesn't speak to how we decide on that application. It's just that it must be filed here. Another reason I think that's important is that a large part of this, the value for this project, is to have on-site fuel to serve electric generators, and ERGS has on-site fuel to serve electric generators. And so customers already have that, they're paying for it, they're gonna continue to pay for it. If that's gonna change, we obviously need to see that and have that reviewed here at the commission. So for that reason, I wanted to have that be a condition for a cost recovery, just that the conversion application be filed at the commission.
Okay, can you restate, so you're not at including 2 and 3, correct? But you're supportive of including 1 as modified by, yes? Can you restate specifically the language that you are supportive including under this one?
Yep, so it would be the first line of 1, cost recovery, including any allowance for funds used during construction, AFUDC, should not be permitted until there is an application filed at the commission for the conversion of road generating station to natural gas. And get rid of the rest. And get rid of the rest of the language that was in there talking about potential milestones and things like that. Basically, it's just 1 milestone, and that's the milestone.
Commissioner Nieto?
Yeah, I think something along these lines I could support. And I think I'm just wondering in terms of flexibility, if there are any scenarios in which we would want that to be a little more flexible. Only because I think, to your point, the ERG's application and the location aspect of all this is pretty critical to the need case and to the benefit of the project. But I think on the other side, what I was thinking about with the previous condition we discussed is the applicant's statements that in the event we end up with excess capacity, we can release that capacity back into the market. We could sell capacity, do a number of different things. And I think part of that was providing a notification into us saying either ERGS isn't moving forward, or it's moving forward in some sort of smaller form, or something is happening, and so we're going to decrease the scope of this project, or these are the market solutions that we're going to pursue, and detailing what those yield in terms of economic benefits or cost to customers, net of what the situation would be had the requirements materialized. And so if in one of those scenarios, do we still absolutely need an application for ERGS, or do we need an application for ERGS or some other cost-benefit type analysis in the event that the application isn't going to materialize? And that's just an open question to you both.
So I'll just give my thoughts and then we can continue the discussion. So first of all, unless this has been vetted and we understand kind of what the potential unintended consequences could be, I'm not super comfortable with that, given that this is new and novel from my reading of it. 2, I think we are potentially attempting to condition recoverability on this, which is not something that we have signified a willingness to do in some of these other, in some of the other proposed conditions here or in related or similar dockets. And 3, similar to what you said, Commissioner Nieto, I think that the intent of earlier new conditions that were discussed and imposed here might either assist with some of what we're looking for in order to be more comfortable here and/or get to some of the things that Commissioner Hawkins may be seeking as it relates to a lack of or a lower amount of demand being created, changes in among the electric facility customers that are, the basis of this request, et cetera. So I have to think about that aspect of it. If maybe we need to tighten or strengthen something in that a little more to get to some of your concerns here. I don't know, but again, like legally and kind of in terms of being discussed or fleshed out by staff so we understand what some of these consequences are, like that aspect of this makes me nervous just because of the tenuousness of some of these other aspects that we're trying to correct with these conditions. I don't know. What do you, if you guys want to take a break, we can take a break, but I don't know if you guys are going to be able to hash all of that out. in however much time we have.
Would be happy to take a break if you have some
Do you
questions
need to take a
want
break, or do you want, I mean,
It'd be good to take a break.
okay.
Can I respond to Commissioner Nato's suggestion? I would support something that allows some wiggle room, as was suggested, so requiring the application or in lieu of a demonstration of why the application is not in customer's interest or something like that. I could see that being helpful in making this workable. And again, I think so much of the value of this project is based on proximity, where it's located, and the fact that this demand will be right next door. So that's why I think this is a critical condition. So just wanted to respond to that idea that Commissioner Nieto put forward.
Okay, break, thank you. Thank you. Okay, we are back. When we left off, we were discussing issue 5I and whether or not to include the conditions proposed here. I believe that we had agreement that 2 and 3 were not necessary, and we were debating the inclusion of an amended number 1. So first, I will just restate my position on including an amended number 1. I think that the condition that Commissioner Nieto proposed that we approved in issue 1 of our decision matrix, the inclusion and modification of issue 5E approved today regarding the types of information that we are looking for for cost allocation. And I think many of the other standard conditions and project-specific conditions that we have discussed and approved today cover everything we need to do and can do related to these concerns. I think those conditions appropriately ensure that we receive notification at an appropriate time and in a more timely manner than like a year later. I want to reiterate, and it's not just applicable to this proposal, but to others that we've talked about, that recoverability of this project, whether it's the project cost and or cost overruns, is not what's before us today, nor is that an issue, an element of a CA. Even if we were to decide that and to put it in an order point, the decision on recoverability will happen in a future rate case proceeding. That could be in 26, that could be in 28, that could be with us, that could be without us. It is not a definitive thing that is A, appropriate because it's not before us today, or B, it does not mean that that's what's actually going to happen because, again, that's not what's before us today. The decision makers in that proceeding will be the ones that are weighing in on that. And then overall, as I stated earlier, I think because of the unknowns and unintended consequences that may occur with the inclusion of this, I don't think that this condition, either as it stands now or as amended, is necessary for approval of the project. So that's my position on it. We can go around again. So we'll start with Commissioner Nieto. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair Strand. I would like to propose a slight modification to the condition that I had proposed earlier that you just referenced, that I think might help Commissioner Hawkins with some of what you're looking for, and then Chair Strand help help avoid some of the recoverability discussion that you're talking about too. And so we have that condition that in the event the anticipated or actual firm delivery requirements significantly decrease, et cetera, I would insert into that if those requirements decrease or the applicant decides not to pursue or modifies the scope of the planned conversion to the Elm Road generating station to natural gas, that then the applicant shall within 30 days notify us of this change, whether it's like the decreased requirements or the ERG's plans changing. And so there we have a timely notification of anything changing in terms of plans to ERGs, and we have that tied to the details on prudently avoiding or mitigating economic impacts of excess capacity to customers. And then just as a belt and suspenders to that, I would suggest adding to 4D, which was part of our standard conditions, just in those quarterly update items, a quarterly update on, it would say, the status of the applicant's planned conversion of the Elm Road generating station to natural gas. So we're not requiring an application, perhaps plans change, but we are getting a quarterly update on how those plans are developing and evolving, and understanding what that the kind of narrative updates are, in addition to the one-time update if there is a significant change. And I'll leave it at that. That's my a proposal that could bridge that gap there.
Thank you, Commissioner Hawkins.
Thanks. Appreciate the ideas there and understand the concerns that the chair raised. And I'm fine joining your modified condition for item 1. I just, want to express that I think we do have a lot of latitude as far as what we can condition approvals on. I get that this is not where we decide recoverability, but if we deem that something needs to happen for that balance of value and need to match up, we have a lot of ability to address that as this commission. And so while I understand wanting to wait for that, I do think we shouldn't short sell our abilities either and what we can achieve here. So I'm fine doing it on the notification side. I just wanted to express that some of our frustrations with the timing and things like that, I do think we have the ability to address those ourselves if we decide to at some point. So I'll leave it there.
I will just say that we have the ability to attempt to do it, but we don't necessarily have the ability to actually effectuate the change that we're seeking all of the time if that's not what's before us. But I think that we have a amendment to the condition approved as part of issue 1 and an amendment to the reporting conditions that were approved in issue 4D. Is that correct?
4D.
And do you want to restate them one more time, just to make sure that we have them for the record? Thank you.
So the project-specific condition is in the event the applicant's anticipated or actual firm deliverability requirements for 2027 to 2028 significantly decrease from its point estimate of 1,058,474 decatherms per day, or the applicant decides not to pursue or modifies the scope of the planned conversion of the Elm Road generating station to natural gas, the applicant shall, within 30 days, both notify the commission of the change and detail the changes in project scope or measures it will request in its natural gas supply plan to prudently avoid or mitigate any economic impacts of excess capacity to its customers. And then the 4D addition would be the status of the applicant's planned conversion of the Elm Road generating station to natural gas.
Commissioner Hawkins?
Just one thing, I think the number you quoted for the point estimate is just for the western lakeshore area and not the overall demand, which is closer to 1.3 million decatherms. So I just want to make sure we're not giving a pass on the reduction, because that reduction to the lakeshore western number is already close to the whole value of the project.
Correct. I'm citing the 2027 to 2028 point estimate from Table 2-2 in the application, which is WeGo Lakeshore Western, like you just said.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure that that's really clear in that condition, because their actual, as a company's point estimate for that year, and this was talked about in the record, is actually closer to 1.3. So I just want to make sure that that is not artificially low as we're putting it in that condition, if it's interpreted as deviating from their whole system peak demand, which is 1.3.
That's a good call out. I think we can just say from its Lakeshore Western point estimate of, and memorialize that.
That would be great.
If you're open to that.
Okay, so super quick, I just want to say that if this is where if the amendment to 4D, that those are technically standard order conditions. This is obviously a very, very project-specific order condition. It's an element of the project. So any sort of, whether or not this is going in, I think we need to be careful that we are very obvious and clear that this is not, in fact, a standard order condition, even though the reporting conditions are, that this is really specific to this. And I'm not saying that that needs to change, but again, that distinction and awareness needs to be, I think, understood and articulated so that there is no confusion and or unintended or intended carryover from standard to project specific and vice versa, because this is very specific. So that's the first thing. Second thing, relatedly, I think we in general have strengthened some of the reporting requirements in general across projects, whether it's in the standard or in the project specific ones, but we also have to be mindful of mucking up the orders and applying overly burdensome reporting requirements that don't actually provide benefit or the right kind of information for when these decisions are actually taken up and decided on in future proceedings. And again, I think we're kind of teetering there right now. You guys know also I don't like duplicative reporting conditions, and I feel again that so much of what has been done already today or prior to this discussion, it covers kind of the concerns that we're trying to address here. But I appreciate the creativity and the flexibility and the diligence in bringing these things to light and kind of threading needles to try to get to address some of those concerns. In general, I think that's just a positive element of the process that we as a commission undertake in terms of compromise on the fly, since that's not something that can happen until we get to these meetings. And again, I just worry as well, kind of that fine line about overburdening our staff, whose workloads are already incredibly high. But with that being said, I understand, again, the whys for the inclusion of this. And I do think that where you are right now is a much better alternative than what was initially proposed in item 1 of 5. What are we on? 5I. HI. So, just getting there. Okay, so I think in terms of just where we are, we would be at and I'll ask you guys for clarification. Still alternative 3 on issue 5I, and then however procedurally we need to document the proposed amendments to the condition already approved in issue 1 and the condition already approved in 4B. Yes or no, in terms of procedure or where?
I guess let's just take it issue by issue. So first on 5I, just to clarify.
I'm still at alt 3 on 5I.
Everyone's at alt 3, so
I
why
am.
don't we
I don't know
state-
about the other two, so I'm at alt 3 on 5I.
Yeah, if we're going alt 3 instead of calling it an alt 2 modification, but we're all on the same page on that language, that's where I'm at too.
Yep, same here, all 3 is fine.
And then revisiting the order condition from issue 1, the amendment to include the language about also notifying of changes without restating it.
Can you just restate the
sure,
whole,
yeah.
the new proposed condition to alt 1 with this amendment, please?
So the total proposed condition, if I have it correct, is in the event the applicant's anticipated or actual firm deliverability requirements for 2027 through 2028 significantly decrease from its Lakeshore Western point estimate of 1,058,474 decatherms per day, or the applicant decides not to pursue or modifies the scope of the planned conversion of the Elm Road generating station to natural gas, the applicant shall, within 30 days, both notify the commission of the change and detail the changes in project scope or measures it will request in its gas supply plan to prudently avoid or mitigate any economic impacts of excess capacity to its customers.
Thank you.
Is that correct?
It is, that's what I have.
All right, so now we have to vote on that.
So,
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm fine with that. Commissioner Hawkins?
I'm good with it.
Commissioner Nieto? Okay.
Okay.
4B, please.
And then next, moving on to 4D, which
D.
is the quarterly reporting requirements. If I understood it correctly, this would be adding a new line to that. So I guess it would be K. And that would read, the status of the applicant's planned conversion of the Elm Road generating station to natural gas.
I'm fine with that. That matches what I have.
I'm good as well.
Yep, it's duplicative, but whatever, we can do it. Thank
Okay.
you.
I think we're good.
Okay, so we are now moving from 5I to 5J, which asks about force majeure conditions proposed by Cub, consistent with my position in Oak Creek and my earlier comments regarding the cost overrun investigation. This proposed condition is not necessary for approval of the project, and the topic of force majeure will absolutely be included in the scope of our cost overrun investigation, so I'm at alternative 3.
All 3 for me as well.
All 3 here.
Thank you. Issue 6 asks if the commission has complied with WEPA. Here I'm at alt 1. Yes, the commission complied with WEPA.
Alt 1 as well.
Alt 1.
Thank you. And issue 7 asks if we should grant a CA for the proposed project, and I'm at alternative 2, that we should grant the CA for the proposed project with the conditions discussed today.
Alt 2.
Alt 2 for me as well.
Thank you. Do we need anything else on this?
I'm
Okay,
good.
we're ready for a motion. Thank you.
In 6630 CG 140, I move we approve Wisconsin Electric Power Company's request for a certificate of authority to construct a new liquefied natural gas facility and associated natural gas pipelines consistent with our discussion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. It is now the commission's intent to go into closed session under Wisconsin statute section 19.85 sub 1 sub G to discuss litigation matters noted below with our legal counsel, and then we will reconvene the open meeting pursuant to Wisconsin statute section 19.85 sub 2. So first I need a motion to go into closed session, please.
I move we go into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute section 19.85 sub 1 sub G to discuss the litigation matter identified in agenda item 8, or in the agenda, and when concluded, reconvene the open meeting pursuant to Wisconsin statute section 19.85 sub 2.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We are now in closed session. Thank you. We are back now into open session. We did discuss this issue with our legal counsel and provided direction to them. And we are now again back in open session. But that concludes our business for today. So our next open meeting is scheduled for Thursday, July 24th at 10:30 a.m. And may I please have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I move we stand adjourned until Thursday, July 24, 2025 at 10:30 a.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We're adjourned.